the three guys in the first spot. We now joined by Commissioner of the Canadian Premier League, David Cianachan. Good to see you.
Yeah, I love this guy. He actually took the time when he first met me to figure out how to say my last name. Cianachan. Was like, KJ always got it right from day one. Him and got it right.
Well, there you go. I'm going to get that right for sure. I'm delighted to be joined by you. I'm going to go through a ton of stuff, and we'll open up for questions after about 20 minutes or so. David and I are just going to go through what has been a tremendous year. You know, no doubt about it. We were just talking before we came up here. We know you're in December, the final month of 21. We got a final to play tomorrow, and there was times this year where none of us thought any of this was going to happen. Let's be honest, at the start of 2021, we had no idea where we were going to be, where the games would be played, whether the people would be in the stands, whether the players on the pitch. And so it's, you know, it's not relief, it's just fantastic. That's the emotion I get when we come through this. But David, let's start there, and let's get your opening thoughts, if you don't mind, on what's been a tremendous 2021 season.
Yeah, you know, I got to be honest with you, like, when the owners came to me and said, hey, why don't you come and do this and come to the other side of the fence and manage the league and start off, we're going to start playing in 2019. I had this all drawn up. I knew we were going to have 2 years of a pandemic after our first year, and this is the way it was going to go. But, you know, at the end of the day, you know, this has been a great year. I'll be honest with you. I have to tell you that if you were, you feel like a parent when you actually get to see something start up from scratch, right? And you know, we all know, those of us that are parents, that first step your child takes, that first word out of their mouth, that first time they can run, the first time they can laugh, that's how you think about things. That's what this league has done. Our first year, I think, was a great year. I wasn't allowed to say that at the end, but it was a great year. And then the pandemic hit, and yet here's a league 1 year in, infantile. Not in the sense of the way we were good, like we were good, but to be hit with that kind of tsunami and for 2 years, not 1 year, and to do very well and get better each year, I thought that was fantastic. And again, the league office, led by Glenn and Mickey and Roy and all the great people there, they rose to the occasion. The clubs, starting with the ownership, the technical staff, the coaches and the players, they all rose as well. Again, not only in 2020, but in 2021. I think they did a great job. I literally have the ability to sit back and look at games in 2019 and 2020 in the Island games, because I think we're still seeing them on TV at times these days. But the reality is you're seeing some of that, and then the games this year. And the level of competition is outstanding. I mean, I've had people say to me, they can't believe how fast the game is, how skillful it is. It's at a pace that's not, you wouldn't expect to see in a league that's only been around for 1 full year and a couple of part years. Although I would say we got a full year in this year.
Yeah, I think it's a really good way to carry on going when you talk about the competitiveness on the pitch, right? You know, I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. Obviously, tremendous amount of games. We've had 114 games, 292 goals. You know, so many young players. We're going to get into that as well in terms of the Canadian influx on it. But we've already seen this season the quality of it go way above and beyond, right?
Yeah, about it. And you know, KJ, you're right. Like when you talk about the number of goals, I mean, you know, 114 games, you know, and almost 3 goals a game. That's pretty good. That's really good, actually. And that's always been the knock on our sport, football in North America, right? It's always been, there's not enough goals in the game. Our goals are extremely exciting, and these are not like tap-ins. Like there's some phenomenal goals that have been scored in our league throughout the year. Great, you know, it's exactly the type of excitement you want.
And it has helped, you know, immeasurably across the region, right? Here we are in Hamilton, Ontario, with Forge playing tomorrow. We're going to get into Pacific and give them some love a little bit later. But Pacific will allow me to talk about this too, because they know what Hamilton, you know, the team in Hamilton Forge have accomplished in CONCACAF is what they want to do and has driven this league forward. You think about this team going down to the regions that they've been to. They've been to Panama, they've been to El Salvador, you know, you've been to Costa Rica, Honduras this week, and getting rounds of applause from these teams, these ultras of these stadiums, and coming away with results, David, for this league is I would imagine even exceeded your expectations for year 3.
You know what? You know, I'll say this, and I say this to everybody that asks me or doesn't ask me. I tell them anyways. The maturation of what I've seen of Forge and the way they play football is night and day versus 2019. seeing them in the preseason before 2019, they were fantastic, right? Like, they're very passionate and everything else. But you can just see, and, it's interesting because people like Josh Simpson and Rob Friend, they said to me, when we start sending players abroad to play against other teams, the level of maturity is going to go through the roof, right? Because the game is just at such a higher level. And so the little things don't bother people. You watch the Forge players today, I can tell you right now, the old gatherings of players, everybody runs to where the foul was, or, blah, 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 and the yelling and all that. You don't see nearly as much of that as what you used to. Because, again, they've been battle tested, really. Right? They've been tested in battles that are even higher. I think that rubs off on our league, too. It's good for the league. It's also bringing players to us. Because now people are they're coming out and people are saying, wow, these guys come from Canada? Well, it doesn't hurt when the men's and women's teams are doing so well, and people see that. But it's just one more thing on top of it. When they left Honduras the other night after drawing 0-0 in probably one of the toughest places in the world to play, their fans down there, who literally you would have thought would have lit them on fire if they could have got near them, clapped for them on the way out, recognizing how good they were and how they played. That, to me, is not just about Forge. That's and all of the teams and clubs in our league and who we are as people, right? That, to me, that's called ambassadorship. And so that's what CONCACAF gives us as well, KJ.
Yeah, and to follow up on that, I think 10 or 11 days, they're going to be in the Champions League draw. They're going to be in the last 16 with the best teams in Major League Soccer and the best teams in Liga MX. How important is that for us as a league to get presence in that competition?
To me, it's amazing because it validates everything that we've all worked for. It validates everything that you've all written and reported on, right? It validates everything that we do every single day. It takes us to another level, in the collision, right? Remember in 2019, I think I told you guys at the end of that year that people were actually calling me from Europe and said, hey, you kind of caught us by surprise. We weren't expecting this level. They're not saying that anymore. They're not saying, oh, we weren't expecting this. Now there is an expectation. And it starts with the national teams, but it also comes down to what's your league, right? What's your top tier league and how do they perform? We're doing that. Let's not just talk about Forge. Let's talk about Pacific FC, who plays out of Langford, right? Most people say, where's Langford? Sometimes other people call it Langley, but it's Langford. The bottom line is they beat an MLS team, right? They beat an MLS team this year. Quite frankly, I was at the game. Probably a lot of you were at the game or watched the game against TFC at BMO Field in the semifinals, right, of the Canadian Championship. Between us, and this is not a proud father talking about one of his children. This is somebody that's arm's length looking at going, they should have won that game. And they didn't play against 9 Canadians. They played against TFC's #1 team. And they were unlucky not to win. Truthfully. That's what gives you street cred. And that's what our teams are doing.
Within our league, I know when we do with our broadcast partners from One Soccer and Craig Cioli and Adam and others here, Gareth, we talk a lot on One Soccer about how much we love the race for the playoffs this year. Obviously, it was expanded to get to 4 teams, right down to the wire, David. 75% of your teams were right in it till the very end. Talk us a little bit about that. Why was that important to expand it to 4? And I think that probably helps a little bit in terms of rising the quality of competitive football because almost every game mattered this season.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. I mean, it was about every game had to matter, and we wanted as many teams in it as possible. We want that. We also we had made a commitment after 2019 that we would listen to our fans and our supporters, and they told us what they were looking for. And it would have been easy for us just to replicate what we did in 2019 in 2021. But you know what? Our team and the owners and all the clubs agreed we need to be different and make some changes and keep clubs in it. And they were in it right to the end. Like, we don't have promotion relegation. One day maybe, right? But we don't have it yet. So how do you do that? What I love, the most important thing for me is 4 teams get in. The 2 youngest teams in the league. The 2 youngest teams in the league, by far, are part of the top 4. That's amazing. So you got the old, I'll call it the old guns and the young guns, let's call it that. And it's not about age, but it's about, so two clubs had been there before, two hadn't, right? And all of a sudden now, how exciting was that? So very interesting.
You talk about youth. Let's move on to that then. The numbers here speak for themselves. Total minutes played: 33,398 minutes across 48 players. We're talking about the under 21 players now. The initiative that we've got here, an incredible amount of Canadians at that level, under 21, making a significant difference as well. By the way, we're going to see a lot of them tomorrow on the pitch here at York United with the leaders with that: Max Ferrari, Isaiah Johnston, Cedric Toussaint, Noah Wright, and others. I would imagine that continues to exceed your expectations when you see numbers as high as that, and York just smashing through that in 4 or 5 days.
Yeah. Listen, at the end of the day, and this is, Canadians should hold us accountable for this. Playing Canadian players and playing young Canadian players are two of the foundational building blocks of this league. We said that's what we were going to do, right? And it takes the ownership group and the coaches and the technical people in the clubs to actually fulfill that, right? But it also means that we as a league office have to hold them accountable for that. So that's important to us. We should be held accountable for that. It's important that we develop that. Now, we're not going to see a lot of young Canadians coming out of the CPL to start with going right into the men's national team. That's not going to happen overnight, but it will happen. You can hold me accountable for that because it's there. I can see it now. But it also, when I hear the passion around the boardroom table from the owners, from people like Bob Young, from Rob Friend, Josh Simpson, Ian Allison out at Cavalry, right? They talk about young players all the time, and that's what they need to do. It's important for us. It's why we are here. And for me, I think it's almost 30% of the players in the league are under 21. That's good. That's a good balance. We should have that. And think about all these young people. How many of them would not have gone on to play anymore? They just stopped. That's too bad. It's not good. We can't have that.
I'm talking about opportunities in the same way. You and I have had long discussions away from the microphone sometimes about what the European model is about, right? Giving pathway for young players and pulling that all the way through. And, League One is certainly going to be a massive provider of that as well. But what about youth sports as well? Because we had a handful of players. We've got Metusela playing for Forge tomorrow, as an example, who played significant minutes in this league. And youth sports, again, gives them an opportunity to come through and play. And it's great to see players like that making a difference on the pitch.
And I will tell you, like, if you polled the coaches in the league, they would probably tell you they were a little unsure of the youth sports thing when we first brought it up. But again, we poked through and did something that no other sport had done. We actually brokered a deal, if you want to call it a deal, if you want to call it, but we actually carved our way through that and said, let's do this. Let's allow these young players to play for money and not have their eligibility go. It had never been done. No one's been able to put their hand up and tell me, I know it was done over here. We did, right? And now other types of sports, basketball is one of them, they've done the same thing. So yes, that youth sports is massive. That for me it's a big deal. League One is the other piece. When we had the opportunity, and League One had kind of outgrown with its parents at the time when we started this league, we had the opportunity to go into League One and have an influence there and take it under our wing. It took us a nanosecond to say yes to that. Why? Because the academy system in this part of the world it's very, very difficult. You don't have to go any further than the MLS teams, both south of the border and here and within our own borders, understand. I've had private conversations with owners. KJ and I have talked about it. It's very, very difficult. It becomes a bit of a hole in the bottom of the bucket, right? It's very difficult. And the problem we run into is the sports level side from an economic perspective, it's hard to let younger people out there playing first team minutes. And we all know this. If you want to be better, you need first-time minutes, right? Why are you in some of these European clubs right now that they're starting to play 17-year-olds? More and more, they're running them out on the field, right? Because they'll only know if they can rise to the occasion, if they can compete at a higher level against people that are better than them, right? They need to know how to deal with the Roy Kents of the world, so to speak, right? They have to know that, right? And it's not that simple. Elite athletes are always trained that way. My daughter, Hannah, is 21 now. She was an elite gymnast when she retired when she was 12. That level of athlete, they push them to the point where they're constantly failing until they can master something. And then they raise the bar, raise the bar, raise the bar. We have to do the same thing here in this game. We're playing catch up against leagues around the world that have been over 100 years old. They're over 100 years old. The good news is we get all the learning from everyone else.
Yeah, talking about learning, let's move away from the pitch for a little bit. We'll come back just to wrap it up before we get your questions on the outcome. Talk about tomorrow's final a little bit as well. Let's talk about some things away from the pitch. We're going to get into the league as well and their commitments, making a change in it shortly because it's been a big year for that as well. But we have to start with the players and the union that's been discussed this week, and I know there's been some developments there. So what can you fill us in with what's going on so far in terms of how fluid these conversations are?
So out of respect,
that was a Freudian split.
Might be me. Yeah.
By the way,
Make me hit the off switch on the mic right as I was about to answer that question. So listen, out of respect for the conversations that are happening, we are having conversations. And we've had conversations. We're going to have further conversations when the season's over. We've agreed to that. We're going to sit down. We're going to talk about it. I will say to you, though, think this through. And I'm not lobbying or anything because I'm telling you right now, no issues whatsoever. We're going to do this. The reality, though, is in 2019, we started the league. And then, as I said, I joked when I said I scripted this pandemic for 2 years. You go into this. You are literally fighting to breathe, right? You can't let distraction, not that it's a distraction, but you can't let anything else inside of your brain and what you can handle at that point in time. Glenn Johnson literally looks like he hasn't slept in 2 years. For me to add anything else to him on top of that, Mickey Roy, same thing. These guys look like they have gone through a world war, in my opinion, right? And so that's part of it, right? There's a time and place for everything. The time and place is here now as we finish the season. We'll get to it, right? And so no issue with that at all. Listen, the players have talked to me. They you know the best thing about the job that I have? The players actually feel that I'm approachable. They can come and talk to me anytime they want. Kwame, I saw him at the Pacific FC and Toronto TFC game. He came up and talked to me and said, "Hey, how you doing, Commissioner?" Like they know they feel comfortable. I like that. I want to be approachable. I want to be approachable to the players, to the coaches, the technical staff, to the owners, to the fans and supporters that are out there. We should be. But I'm just this dude grew up selling coffee and donuts. But I do have right and wrong, and I understand that. And now is the right time.
What is also the right time has been this commitment from this league this year to make a difference off the pitch. We know that the world is changing, and in 2021, you think about what the league was at the forefront of right from the start. With every child that matters, and obviously all the way to the Legion and what happened with the poppies on the pitch, on the shirts and how much they raised, over 22,000. Just talk about that and the development of what this league is, because it's never just about producing a league. It has to stand for things that the league is.
100%. Principles are everything in life, right? And so at the end of the day, you have to walk the talk. And, one of the things that we talk about all the time, the office and as well as the Board of Governors and even the players, they hear it all the time. Coaches hear it. This is about communities. You don't build brands from the top down. You build a brand from the bottom up. This I know, okay? This is where I earn my stripes. Build it from the brand up. I tell our partners, sponsors that too. What we do is we connect to communities. In order to connect to communities, you need to understand what's happening in communities. And the world it's got to change. We have to be better people. We all do. We have to recognize that the world's not all equal at this point in time. It isn't, and it's not right. So we have to be prepared to adapt. We can't just say, oh, well, it's only about this cause or it's only about that cause. It's about every cause. We should care, right? And we have to as a league. I think our league is very diverse. I can't wait until we get to a women's professional league in Canada. That's going to come. I'm telling you, it's coming. We should be the best women's women's team in the world. We need a league here too, right? And this is not about that. This is about CPL. But the point is, we have to care about our communities. You can't say we're a community organization, we're building the communities up, and then ignore what's happening. You have to recognize it. You have to stand for change and be better for it. And our players help us do that because they are so connected. They're rooted in the communities.
A couple more questions open it up to the floor. What can you tell us about there and any updates on what's going on and also around expansion? Because obviously Vancouver has been announced. What's the update more with that? What's to come? What's going on with Saskatchewan? And is there any more key dates that people should be aware of?
Yeah, so I think first let's talk about. I'm really excited about Vancouver. Like Vancouver is a great city, and frankly, great to have another professional club there, and they'll do very well. I know that. Right now, it's a matter of where will they play. It's the same thing, right? First, you got to get the owner out of the way. Not out of the way. You got to bring them in, right? And then it becomes where we play. The longest pole in the tent is always where are we going to play, because we don't have a plethora of stadiums that you can play at in this country. Right, so that's the key. So that's the biggest issue right now. It is just finalizing some negotiating. It's going back and forth. Believe it or not, there's a number of communities in that Lower Mainland that would love to have a Canadian Premier League team. Why not? Why would you? It's great. It's the global game. Saskatoon has the same issue, but things are going really well. The municipality they're on side. They get it. They're getting the people of Saskatchewan are behind. People of Saskatoon are behind the club. We're moving down the road. It just is. When are we going to see this idea of a stadium? That's there. And we've got 3 or 4 other clubs and places that we're talking to today. The issue will be when will they get a spot. But this is a great game because you don't necessarily have to have 1 million people in a town to support a football club. You really don't. And so there's lots of room. And, you brought up League One earlier. We are now getting teams coming to League One in 2022. They're going to come in and play in League One. They've already called out that their goal is to find a way to win that and then apply and say, we want to come to the CPL.
And the other thing, David, is Quebec. Is it not an unbelievable amount of talent there and just passionate for the sport? I know you've been pretty vocal about that too.
So yeah, no doubt. In Montreal, we all know Tony at TSN Montreal Radio. He's a great guy, and he's a big fan of the Canadian Premier League. He's a big fan of young Canadian players, which I love the guy for it. At the end of the day, he said this. He actually said to me, David, there's a rumor here that in Quebec that this is a conspiracy to keep the professional football out of Quebec. And it was great that he said that to me on a radio program, because I said, that's not the case. I would go to Quebec tomorrow. Somebody just introduce me to the owner and tell me where we're going to play. We'd be there in a heartbeat, because we won't be complete in this country in the men's top tier football until we get a team in Quebec. I'm saying it right now. That's important to us. We've had lots of people kind of circling and talking to us, but talk's cheap. It takes money to buy whiskey. And this is not a whiskey ad. The bottom line is that's the old saying, right? So you really got somebody's got to step up. We will get Quebec. We want Quebec. It's arguably the second or third biggest soccer province in the country.
Yeah, no question. Final one for me is on this match that you'll be here tomorrow. It couldn't be better, no? Forge, obviously 2-time champions, trying to get a Canadian Premier League dynasty against the best attack. Whether I tell you that or the stats tell you that, both of you will tell you the same result. Pacific FC, who are trying to come over here, the dog, and can go out there and beat this team. This is a fascinating matchup between 2 proud Canadian Premier League franchises.
100%. I don't think you guys could ask for a better tagline on the story, right? Like, think about it. Like, this is kind of like a little bit of a David and Goliath. It's young versus seasoned. We'll say old, young versus seasoned. Those attack, very steady. They're different styles of play for sure. Coaches are very different. Like, everything about it is good. Having said that, the one commonality of the whole thing is they're fans and supporters. They're passionate. They're mad about their team. They love their teams. I've been to Pacific. Man, you go to a game out there and you swear there's 50,000 people in the stand. Forge, you'd swear there's 50,000 people here too, and it doesn't matter what time, what the weather looks like, whatever, they're there. So again, it's a great storyline. You can, if somebody said to me, David, this is the story we're thinking about for this year. This is how it's going to end. Would you have signed up for it? I think I would have put my hand up.
Unscripted drama at its finest, no doubt. Okay, microphone's out, and we'll get some questions on Zoom as well. And I think we'll start.
I tried to talk as long as I could, so you cut questions out of you guys.
And just a reminder,
apparently it didn't work.
Just a reminder, please introduce yourself and what channel you are. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Matthew Nugavara, Waiting the Red. Going back to the PFA question, because I think on a lot of people's minds, why is now the time? Why do you feel it's changed in the relationship with the PFA and internally in the league? And a related question then, you mentioned the personnel challenges to that in the past. What sorts of, what ways do you anticipate addressing those personnel challenges in terms of workload and strengths and whatnot?
Yeah, so when you say personnel, you're talking about at the league level?
Yeah, at the league level.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, we've got to kind of keep building forward. We were stunted for 2 years, right? That's at the league office. But why the association or players association at this point in time? Because it's the right time. After our first year, it's like, well, wait, you're just finding your feet. Like you're literally, I talk about children. Like that first step that a child takes. It's like, you don't know whether they're going to be on their ass or they're gonna run, right? You don't know. The reality is, we're now 3 years into this. Kind of got an idea where we are. We feel good about it. I think players are probably, their heads are on right. They're talking. Not only is their level of maturity on the pitch different, their level of maturity as professional athletes has grown as well, and so is ours. Okay, so I have zero issue. It's not just them. It takes two, right? The two of us we both have to be like that, and we're ready for it, and I think they're ready for it too. And so, yeah, listen, there's nothing to be afraid of here. It's business. That's what you got to do.
Next question.
Yeah, Commissioner Adam Jenkins with One Soccer. You'll have a chance, knocking on wood if I could, to finally have that full season you've been chasing again since 2019. What does 2022 look like in a full season you've learned in this Nets package? When you think of what 22 might look like, where would you like the league to go and feel like?
Where would I like the league to go? I'd love to have one of our teams win in CONCACAF. We were this close, right? I'd love to see one of our clubs win the Canadian Championship, and I think we're capable of that. You think about it, Forge loses. Have you seen the viral video that went around the world on the 11 penalty kicks, one after the other? Somebody was smart enough in the crowd to actually do that and then put it together on
that would be our social man.
That would be, was that Nick?
That was Nick and I behind the goal. Right?
So good. But the point is, like, can you imagine? Forge loses on the 11th, right? And then the team that beats them wins the Canadian Championship. That close, right? And could have been any one of the clubs, right? So those are big ones. But I also want to see more fans and supporters in the stadiums. I want to have more of a connection with our communities. We need to keep solving for that. We need to really. If only we could all tell 100 friends, and we could get them just by telling them. Right? Like, I know we can do that, but it takes time. Like you have to win your way there. Like it's like that's where we're at.
And you weren't really in home markets to locals, right? It has to be said, right? That's something that next year is going to be dramatically different. It's going to feel like a full season because you're going to be kicking off and you're going to be stretching from April onwards.
And that's a moment. That's a big pride moment for us at the league office to get back playing in front of our fans and supporters, because our supporters have stayed with us for the 2 years. They've stayed through the 2 years. We were adamant we could not go dark. You can't do that. You have to be there. And our supporters, they've been great throughout this. And I think we just need to keep doing all the good things, winning, and if we do that, then I think that's payback, right? Just be better at everything we do.
Next question.
Hi. Just wanted to ask you particularly, it's a two-part question. First, is with regards to the international players coming into the league with 4 years minimum. Want to know how does that going to work? And second, is the CPL planning to market better than the MLS soccer has to the ethnic communities?
Well, so let me start the rules around the way we built the league, right? One of the things that the Board of Governors, when we talked about starting the league and how we were going to make the teams, we started with what are the foundations, right? One, we wanted young players. We needed that for this country. It was sadly lacking, right? And you know, I say it all the time. It's the Rob Friends, the Josh Simpsons of the world that had to go overseas. And I've had friends that had to go and play over in Europe. And it's the loneliest feeling in the world. They'll tell you that. Now they remember all the days when it was like, oh, it's awesome and everything else. And I think if they were truthful and they bared their soul to you, I'll tell you right now, they probably cried themselves to sleep a number of nights when they first went overseas, even as exciting as what it was. Because no one wants to be that young and away that far, right? So, but we need to develop that here because then more and more people, the funnel is wider, right? More young people can play at a competitive level, top tier competitive level, get exposure outside of the country as well, and move on. That's the whole idea. So that's why we said we're going to limit the amount of internationals that come in. That's why only 7 per team. 16 of the 23-man roster has got to be Canadians, right? Now, we also said we wanted young people as well, because the young people are the ones that were running away from the sport. Do you know that Canadian teams under the at U15 are as good as any teams in the world? It starts to drop off very quickly once they go past 15. And believe it or not, I was 15. It was a long time. But at that point in time, things like jobs and school and girlfriends and this and that comes into play, right? Before you know it, there's a lot of things tugging at you. And so it's not surprising that if I don't see a light at the end of the tunnel in the game that I'm playing, I might stop and focus on other things. We had to stop that. We had to show them a light. We had to be that light. And that's why the under 21 rules, right? That's why we want that. And we're happy to bring internationals over. We're happy to bring Canadians over. I mean, look at the amount of Canadians that are under 21. It's a good thing. And as long as we keep ramping up the competition, then those players will get better and better and better. Right? I think about Mo Farsi. Mo Farsi last year. You want to talk to me about somebody that, because I got to see a lot of the games in PEI. A player that really caught my eye, Mo Farsi. Right? Great young, still a young player, but he wasn't 19, but a young player and a good player. Now, the second question was, I knew I'd forget.
About international players.
Oh, so the international players.
No.
Ethnic communities. So, in our opinion here, we are very much, this country, we're a multinational community. Canada. We are. What are we called? The mosaic, not a melting pot. We actually love the fact that we have all these cultures living together in this country. And always have had, right? That's important. We have fans all walks of life that come to our stadiums. We just need more. And at the end of the day, people are very proud to be Canadian. I'll tell you that right now. Very proud. So no, we market to everyone. I would like to see everyone that lives in our communities at our games.
Any questions from the audience before we go on to Zoom?
Zoom, and we're going to start with Michael on the top.
Afternoon, David. It's Michael from AFTN. Just wanted to go back about the Vancouver expansion. Obviously, a lot of people out here will be excited by that. The fact that you're going to have the